Hello everyone, this is Professor Q. We're going to go ahead and discuss Chapter 14, Determining Project Progress and Results. So let's talk about 5 aspects of project determination. What does determine, what can it mean exactly? And there's about 5 examples that the book gives us. One is to give direction to or decide the course of. The second is to be the cause of, to influence, or to regulate. The third is to limit in scope. Fourth is to reach a decision. And the fifth option that's given is to come to a conclusion or resolution. These are all things that will help in the determination process of working your projects within a PMO. The PM and decision making. So it's important for the PM to have pretty decent to at least moderate to excellent decision making skills. So that being said, during the project execution, the PM may need to give directions, replan, influence, guard the scope, follow up, and ensure proper results are delivered. Those are standard operating principles that PMs will have to make decisions on. PMs from decision making may involve personally making decisions, delegating decisions, being part of a group that makes decisions, and facilitating decision making process. Depending on what this topic is, depending on how it will impact the project, the PMO, the overall success and failures. These types of decision making skills or options can be used. Internal project issues. The project's nerve center consists of integration, risk, and communication issues. The integration includes making choices to ensure project results are delivered. The PM needs to understand priorities and make decisions accordingly. All these items right here are, again, part of the decision-making process that we as PMs must consider before making any decisive choices on project options or project deliverables. So, internal project issues, things that may require decision making is direct and manage project work, monitor and control project work, monitor project risk, implement risk response, manage communications, and monitoring communications. These are all items that will require decent to excellent decision making. One of the things I want to comment on is the monitor and control of project work. Now, by definition, monitoring and controlling project work is a series of activities such as identifying work packages for tracking, reviewing, and documenting the progress to ensure that the project execution meets performance objectives as defined in the project plan. Within the PMBOK, monitor means reviewing the progress and capturing project performance data with reference to the project plan, developing performance measures, and communicating performance information. Now, let's talk about control. What is control? Control, by the book's definition, is assessing actual performance obtained from monitoring a work element and comparing it with planned performance, determining variances, analyzing trends to identify and implement process improvements, and evaluating possible alternatives and recommending appropriate corrective actions as needed, just like anything in life. We monitor and we see what's happening, at least in the elements of our lives, and then we make decisions on how can we direct the progress of how things are going once a project is implemented. So, monitor and control project work. There are a couple of factors that come to play. What metrics to keep, what to measure, how to report results. These are, what we may call, some of us may call key performance indicators, right? And we have to make that decision. Now, what is a variance? A variance is a measurable departure from a planned baseline or expected value. A variance is a measurable departure from a planned baseline or expected value. So if there's a difference between what we actually plan versus what is actually happening within a project, and being able to measure that progress. Monitoring and controlling work. You have to continually measure and observe throughout the project. There's activities occur in parallel with a project execution. There's activities that need to be timely, and they allow workers to self-control their work when possible. One of the things that when we talk about, going through project control, is what we call steering control, which is work compared to a plan on a continual basis. And then there's a go, no go control, where the PM must receive approval to continue. And what you find with a lot of projects, especially when you're dealing with projects with high visibility, is you have a go, no go control where you have a board of stakeholders or sponsors that will take a look at a project and make a decision. And steering control deals with, okay, when you're monitoring the project, you're seeing how work is going, and you're planning on a continued basis with your team based off of the performance of that project once it's implemented. So when we're dealing with control, right, there's corrective actors, there's preventive actors, and there's defect repair. Those are some of the things that help us control a project. Possible monitoring and controlling decisions. Revisiting the project charter, adjust the project plan, adjust the day-to-day instructions, proceed to the project closing. These are all things that will help us determine the appropriate decision depending on where the progress is going from an implementation standpoint. So, perform integrated change control. What is that? It's a change is a reality of all projects. Correct person or group needs to be approved changes. Need a simple standard system of proposing and evaluating changes. Hey, listen, with all projects, there is constant change. And in our lives, there's constant change, and we have to be able to adjust accordingly based off of the reality that we're in. So from an aspect, our personal lives and our project lives is not that different as far as reevaluating change. So, two terms I want you guys to kind of review is to perform integrated change control, which is reviewing all change proposals, estimating the impact on a project goals wherever appropriate, approving or declining changes, and managing changes to deliverables, schedules, budgets, and the project plan. That's perform integrated change control. Now, what is change control? It's a process where change proposals to various project planning elements are acknowledged, formally documented, and either approved or declined after the review. What is a change control board? It consists of formal group authorized and responsible for reviewing, evaluating, approving, delaying, or rejecting any changes to any aspect of the project plan by following a formal communication method of documenting the decision process. So typically, people that you have involved in the change control board is a project manager, a sponsor, core team, key stakeholders, right? Kind of like what we call that steering committee that helps us guide through decisions with a project. These are all individuals that are part of the change control board. In an agile project, change is expected. The plan only the first iteration. So there's always going to be changes based off of the iterations, which last in an agile project lasts from 2 to 4 weeks. Monitor project risk. Some things to consider when you're monitoring project risk. You have to consider multiple responses to a given risk. For previously identified risk events, you have to track the identified risks, execute the response plans, and evaluate their effectiveness. By definition, monitor risk means the process of adhering to the risk response plan or of tracking identified risk, identifying new risk, monitoring residual risk, and evaluating the effectiveness of the risk response process throughout the project. These are items that, from an effective risk management strategy and making decisions on those risks. It's a simple formula that most project managers use in order to manage risk and make decisions off of them. Resolving a project risk. The unanticipated risks may materialize. That's a fact. There's just like life, things happen. Okay, so some of the best laid risk plans, may miss certain risks that come up because most of us don't have time machines and we can't predict the future, and there's a lot of stuff that can be unforeseen. The unknown risks require contingencies. So this goes back to some of the three primary drivers for success or failure to a project is time and budget. Resources may be included or scope, but we should have contingencies plans and time, putting buffers on time, putting buffers on budgets, putting buffers on resources, therefore planning for more time, more potential time to do things, more potential money to work projects, and maybe having some alternative resources laid out just in case you lose resources, which happens often within projects. The possible outcomes of implementing risk response includes updates to risk register. You have to approve change orders and lesson learned. So when we implement risk responses, when a risk event occurs or is likely to occur soon, the person assigned to the risk executes the strategy identified in the risk management plan. You guys have to excuse me. Looks like there's some people doing lawn service. If you hear that in the background, my apologies. So when we manage communications, what do we have to do? We have to determine the project information needs. We have to establish information retrieval and distribution systems. We have to collect the information on the executed work and work in progress, and we have to report progress to all stakeholders. So managing communications, this is from the PMBOK. This definition is from the PMBOK. All the work connected with the communications management plan include planning for it, generating it, organizing and sharing it, and storing it, and disposing of it. Hey, listen, it's always good to have a standard communication plan, because with all projects, how you communicate progress, how you give visibility to the progress determines on how good your communication plan is, and being able to manage that communication plan is managed communications will lead to either success or failure of your project on one level or another. So report performance. How do we report performance of a project once we're in that monitoring and controlling stage? So you can either work performance data, which is actual raw observations and measurements during execution of project activities. There's work performance information. The work performance data analyzed in the context and integrated, considering relations across the areas. So that's basically taking the data and turning that into a story or a graphic and reporting that. Also, there's work performance reports. It's the compilation, of work performance information in some physical or electronic form that are presented as project documents intended to generate awareness, discussions, decision making, and other suitable actions. These are basically decks. They're reports. Maybe there's some graphics. Maybe there's a roadmap. Maybe some type of visual representation of the progress of how your project is doing. That's work performance reports. So, continuation of work performance reports, you have to report weekly, daily, or weekly, daily. You have to emphasize specifics, the report, the target date, and the current status. You have to update the risk register and the issues log, and consider recommended changes. Listen, these are key components that you have to consider when you're generating a project report. All these factors come into play as far as major decision making and keeping your stakeholders and your sponsors aware of the project status. In an agile framework project, brief stand-up meetings, there's no chairs, no coffee. That's pretty much how you report performance. Basically, from previous chapters, you understand that stand-ups have meetings happen for about 15 to 20 minutes every day, and everybody gets a update on how they're doing with the project. And then you just keep it moving each and every day of a work week. Monitor communications. Monitor communications. What is that definition? It's monitoring and controlling communications throughout the project lifecycle in order to make certain that the information needs of all stakeholders are met. The team members empowered to decide what to do and when. The communication is frequent and it's rapid. It's a rolling wave plan, and the changes expected. These are key items for monitoring and communications on an agile team. Remember, teams are empowered to make those empowered to make and decide what to do. You leave it up to the team to determine the direction of how the project will go. In agile framework projects, that communication is rapid, or it's frequent, it's rapid. You're meeting every day. You're actively collaborating. Rolling wave planning, it's consistent, continual planning every day. That's all it is. And know in an agile project that change is expected, that things happen, and that's part of agility, right? Being able to switch positions, being able to switch where things, how things are going. That's key. Right here, these are just some of what we call the Burndown Charts. I'm not going to get into too much detail on it because that's a whole another lesson plan entirely, but it's used just to kind of show the amount of remaining work in an agile framework project. I just wanted to show you an example of what a burn down looks like. Quality management and control tools, complete list in Exhibit 14.9. So we're going to talk about what a flow chart is. So we're going to take a look at check sheet, Pareto chart, cause and effect diagram, and histogram. So flow charts, they're models showing workflow. Check sheet, they're simple, they're structured form to gather data. A Pareto chart is a vertical bar graph showing the frequency of problems, and there's a cause and effect diagram, which is as an outline showing possible causes. Then there's a histogram, which is a vertical bar graph showing average and variation. So this is an example of a flow chart. You're estimating project cost. There's not too much to this, but just kind of understand and know that this is a pretty decent example of what a flow chart is. And again, it's a visual model showing workflow. That's all it is. With our check sheet, this is a check sheet example of check sheet for labor cost estimating, right? And your typical check sheet is just a simple structured form to gather data. That's all it is. We have what's called a Pareto chart. It's a vertical bar graph to show frequency of problems. That's all it is. And this example is showing labor estimating process problems. So again, a Pareto chart is just a vertical bar graph to show frequency of problems. So if you take a look at this chart, you're looking at incorrect scope used that determine a lot of the problems right there versus maybe unexpected experience, which is on the lower level, is what's causing errors. We have the cause and effect diagram. And basic cause and effect diagram, it's a visual outline showing possible causes. So, right here you have the Pareto chart using the cause and effect. So this is coupled with the Pareto chart. And it's showing us the people, the methods, the timing, and the deliverable design, and how it interacts with, at least from a cause and effect standpoint, the issues that's being faced shown on the Pareto chart. Then we have what's called a histogram. It's a vertical bar chart showing the average and variation. The histogram, this one shows the histogram impact of the number of days to create an estimate. So we have anywhere between 4 days and 9 days. It looks like We have a 4-day averages, a 5-day averages, or 6-day averages, and 7-day averages. So we're taking this data and we're putting it, turning it into information, and we're using that information to tell a story. And this histogram tells that story in a vertical bar chart showing averages and variations. We have what's called earned value management. Basically, what earned value management is a decision-making tool. It helps examine the project status at a given point in time. It understands the project progress in terms of cost and schedule. By definition, PMBOK, the earned value management is a management method of measuring schedule and cost performance. That's all it is, measuring schedule and cost performance. Some of the current values is like when you're dealing with earned value management, is how much work should be done, how much work is done, how much is done work cost, and how much was the project supposed to cost. And it kind of uses all those type of answers all those type of questions. And here are just some of the terms, and these are some of the questions that you want to ask based off of the earned value management. I'm not going to go through all of them, but no, these are the questions that you typically want to answer based off of earned value. Right here is some standard values for earned value that's used to do calculations. I'm not going to show you all the complex formulas today because we just didn't have time to cover it, but know that there's planned value, which is an acronym for PV, how much work should be done. Earned value, EV, was how much work is done. Actual cost, how much did the work already done cost. And budget at completion, BAC, which is how much was the project supposed to cost. And finally, this is the last slide. We want to define the performance and update process. Who reports? All team members and suppliers assigned to previously scheduled activities, any resource wanting to change an activity. That's who we will report. What is reported? Actual starts, actual finish dates, actual duration completed, and estimated remaining duration. These are some of the things that's reported from a performance standpoint. When to report? When do we go ahead and get some report like this? The status date driven by the date of the stakeholder review meeting. Review meetings always dictate when the reports are ready. The project manager publishes status date or as of dates. How to report? You have to list the team members' current assignments, and then you have the previously reported actuals. These are some of the things that you typically want to report on. And this is the end of chapter 14. If you have any questions, please reach out to me via email or send me a text. Chapter 14, determining project progress and results. You have a good day. Bye-bye.